Hey everyone, and welcome back to the BBHS Seek and Find podcast. You are about to listen to Season 2, Episode 3 of the Chosen Recap series here on the BBHS Seek and Find podcast. Want to give you guys a heads up that we've got a new series coming out soon. It is going to be called Come to the Table, and my first guest for that part of the series is Mrs. Donna Heim. So be on the lookout for that podcast. You can still find it in the same place you're listening to these ones. Just pay attention to the titles of the episodes so you know what to expect. Once again, you can find us on YouTube at BBHS.SeekandFind, on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, and on Amazon Music by just searching for the BBHS Seek and Find podcast. Once again, thank you all for listening. Enjoy the episode. All right, let's move on to episode 3. So episode 3 is one of those really... I didn't say it was my favorite.
It's a pretty boss episode.
It is. I love these episodes that are just super unique. So this is a shorter episode. It's only like 37 minutes or something like that. But one reason it's cool, it's called Matthew 4:24, and my birthday is April 24th.
Oh.
So maybe it
And
should
your
be.
middle name's Matthew?
It is not. My middle name's Joseph. But it's a cool episode because not a lot is happening, just talking. I mean, there's some big things that are happening, but there's a lot of just what me and Don have tried to do is get people around the campfire and just talk.
Which, I don't know if you read, the chat rooms or whatever for Chosen, but they filmed this one differently. They tried to film it all in one take without stop and starts.
I didn't know that.
It took them several tries, but if you see around the fire, they keep changing the camera to see people's faces. But the goal was to film it all in one take because they wanted it to just kind of be created in their own. So they had a goal, what they were going to talk about. They knew that there was going to be an argument coming up, but the actors kind of freelanced to bring things out, which I thought was amazing.
That is amazing.
I was tracking that. It was the first 15 minutes of the episode of a straight shot.
It was straight shot.
That's awesome.
And when you think about that and watch TV shows and movies, like, shots are 6-10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, that was incredible for them to do that. And I was trying to think if there was, like, more of a meaning behind it.
They tried to do it, which makes me think, like, when we read the stories in the Bible, and we know they were written centuries later, we know they were written by people who were told, and then finally someone wrote it down. But what in the Bible is straight 15 minutes? Like, what part of the Bible do we have that is just 15 straight minutes of things happening? We don't have it.
No.
At least, I don't think we have it.
It feels like it's all very brief, like, this is what happened, boom, I'm done.
It's like the way I write with bullet points. I feel like that's what the Bible is. It's just bullet points stuck together. And I just thought it was different, interesting. I don't know if I would have liked it in every episode.
No. Well, I think this isn't an episode that you would say, if you want to get into the show, watch Season 2, Episode 3. You wouldn't point people directly to this episode. Like, you're bought into this episode when you have connection to the characters already.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it is cool to see that they're interacting normally, because what are they talking about? So a lot of times they're sort of telling what they expected the Messiah to be like, and how Jesus is so different from that. I did think it was important because they actually, since there's no scripture, they don't reference the scripture in the show. So I looked it up, what Matthew 4:24 actually was, and it says, "And his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers disease," is that right? "And torments, and those who were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them." So that is what is going on in the episode. Jesus
is not in it.
Yeah, he's not in this episode till the very end.
Just like episode 1 of the whole show.
Yep. And so he's off healing all of these people. There's a massive line. Who knows how many people were there? The apostles are taking turns, keeping an eye on the line, making sure no funny business is going on. But the rest of the time is just them talking while Jesus is doing all this hard work.
Right.
A couple of the lines that I wrote down, one of them was from Mary Magdalene. And this is just an awesome line when they're talking about, what Jesus' purpose is and what he's doing. Mary says, "I don't think he's waiting for all of us to be holy. I think he's here because we can't be holy without him." Boom, mic drop. Mary has so many mic drop moments, but she says it in such a soft, subtle way that we sometimes can miss it.
Yeah.
She's such a unifier. Like, so many times they get in these arguments, and then she drops something like that, and it's like, okay, let's trust Jesus a little bit here. Maybe he does know what he's doing.
She's going to do it later when they're
Yeah,
all bickering and fighting again. We won't get into it yet 'cause it's going to come later, but you're right. That's perfect. She's a unifier. Even though she had her moment where she feels guilty for it, but she costs the group some stuff. So that's in a later episode too. So there is another moment that is going to be a foreshadowing moment, which we didn't know at the time. But Thomas is talking to little James, and he asks little James why he hasn't healed him.
Right.
Have
That's a
you
beautiful moment.
seen the the character in real life explaining about this scene?
Yes.
Little James?
Hold on, about the scene that comes later.
Like, well,
The scene
no,
in
you were
season
talking
3?
about. You were talking about his discussion with
Thomas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Saying like the YouTube video is like a mini documentary on him.
I've seen it. There's a later episode where, he
Season
questions
3.
Jesus about it, but it's not,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
I
doesn't
think
happen
that's
yet.
season 3.
Yeah.
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 Go ahead. You can talk about what you're
Well, we watched it on I don't know what his real name is in real life, but he actually has
Bart.
this disability.
Mm-hmm.
And so he explains how this scene, specifically talking to Thomas, was so helpful to him, and it really, I don't know, but you should include that YouTube video when you release this.
When I release this and
Yeah.
put some, when I put some Instagram stuff together, I will.
Yeah.
It's easier to do it on Instagram than with the podcast itself. Short blips.
Yeah, you could tease it a little bit here, but when you actually hit the moment
when
in
you hit the moment in season 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. I think Dallas Jenkins actually asked him for permission.
Mm-hmm.
Can we use your limb
Yeah.
I believe it.
in the episode?
Yeah, he
So
discusses that.
That's cool. We also have Mary, the mother of Jesus, showing up in this episode, and she's just awesome too. I mean, she's a lot like Mary Magdalene in the sense that they're both soft-speaking, but they are jam-packed with powerful lines.
And the apostles want to hear from her around the fire. They
Yes.
ask for her to share insight on Jesus' birth.
She's
What
like,
was it
you
like?"
don't want to hear that. And they're like, yes, we do.
Exactly. One of the things that led to that discussion, they were talking about money, I think. There was a money discussion.
Well, it was real quiet, and Simon says, Andrew, do you want to hear stupid games or whatever?
Yes.
The classic
That's what it was.
around the fire
Around the
game
fire.
conversation. It's great.
I can't think of anything, but my stupid brother does this all the time. Hey, what are those questions you always ask?
That's cool. But somehow that led to the question about Mary's birth. I think she may have alluded to the fact that they grew up and they didn't have a whole lot of money. and
Right,
it was
they were
tough.
poor.
Yes. But what it reminded me of every time you talk about Jesus' birth is that because Mary was expressing how it was strange to her that she had to clean
Right.
off the Son of God. Like it was that the Son of God needed her.
Needed her. That he
So-
cried, that he wept,
Yes.
that he was filthy.
So that God was willing to put himself in such a vulnerable position where this family had to flee being persecuted, and then without any midwife gave birth to the Son of God. It's just when you actually think about the literal
Yeah.
story of it happening, it's just mind blowing.
And she said her and Joseph even had the slightest moment of doubt. This is not what I expected. This
Right.
is actually just a human baby here
Yeah.
that I'm seeing. It's not this glowing, divine being. But she said it was just a moment of doubt. Then they were, recalled what the angels told them and moved on. But yeah, I thought that was a really neat perspective of that because Mary and Joseph, they were human too.
She also talks about in that moment where, Jesus needed Mary and Joseph when he was little.
Right.
But now that he's grown up,
She doesn't remember the last time he needed them.
That's right. She says,
Oh,
as a
dear.
Jew, she's
So
proud.
sad.
Oh,
was
it
sad.
is.
Oh,
She says, as a Jew, she's proud and excited for what he's doing for their people. But as a mom, she gets a little sad sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, this season 4 is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Or season 5, I'm sorry. what's coming up. I've seen some pictures of scenes from season 5.
Oh.
It's going to be brutal for us to watch. But anyways, so Mary steps away, and of course, when the matriarch is gone, the gang starts arguing and bickering, and it starts with Simon. Well, they were talking about the difficulty of growing up being Jewish, I think, and Simon
being oppressed, how long they've suffered.
Yeah, and Simon starts going after Matthew. Has it been difficult for you?
Man, he goes in.
Yeah, he does.
I didn't realize until I went back and rewatched just how mean Simon is to Matthew.
But you also have to, and this doesn't validate any of Simon's behavior, but Matthew was spying on Simon, trying to, have a gotcha moment. Like, I got you, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but both of the behaviors weren't good.
Yeah.
But certainly the way and the vitriol and the anger that he responds with is just way over the top. It's the Franzen temper coming out of Simon.
Well, it's almost like they pointed their whole oppression and everything, like they just found a scapegoat in Matthew in this conversation. All of a sudden, Matthew is the problem here. They just
Great point.
found something to eventually, this is where we can get our anger out.
But it's not so, I don't know, it's weird. It's modern society. It's not so much, in my opinion, that they blame Matthew for what they've gone through, but they blame Matthew for not going through it with him.
Yes.
You took the easy way. That's not fair, so to speak, which is weird, but we all know families. I assume you know families, most of you. We know people who've grown up together, and one of them moves away and is very successful, and everyone else isn't. And there's something about when they come back into the fold, hey, can you share some of that? Or you hear about pro athletes who share their money and lose it all because people take advantage of them. There's something about, if I'm going to suffer, everyone who's with me needs to suffer with me. Otherwise, life's not fair.
Misery loves company.
Yeah, misery loves company. So, yes, Matthew chose to get out of that, and they can't get past the fact that if it was given, the opportunity was given to them, they would have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Simon would have done the exact same thing. He just wasn't smart enough to calculate the numbers on his fingers.
True.
Right?
It's a great point.
But it's just jealous. They're just jealous. And
Well-
it's so weird to think, but he is jealous of them with their religion, where they're at. They can't see that.
There's nothing but grudges being held by all of them.
That's all it is.
We have our own grudges in our own lives that we have to get over.
Yeah, like right now, I want those headphones because these keep popping out of my ears.
I'm wearing some big professional headphones.
Over the
I
ear.
had,
They look
I
great.
had one other pair of these that I spent my own hard-earned teacher money on, but my kids broke it. So, and my kids are not coming anymore, so that's sad. But it's
Woo.
fine. It's also good because then I don't have to worry about them. Shut up, kids. Just kidding. So, but we have this big grudge, and as Abby alluded to, like Simon is up and looking down on Matthew
Yeah.
and pointing to him and screaming, and it's all going to build up to an amazing moment 2 seasons away.
Yeah.
But there's also the rest of the apostles are starting to take sides.
yeah.
It's not just Simon versus Matthew, who's not really defending himself. Matthew doesn't know how to defend himself.
Right.
But people start coming to his side, basically saying, who are you to call him out? Yes, I've made my mistakes, but I didn't go through with it. James and John criticizing Simon for what he was about to do to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting. Like, the thing that's coming to me is that the enemy is a divider,
Yeah.
right? He wants division among that group, and we can see it playing out until the end of the episode
Right.
Talk about it.
when Jesus
Oh,
walks in.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, the drama that this show builds on this. But you can see this happening 1,000 times probably amongst them, where they are arguing over what needs to be done or what should be done or who's who and what's what. And here comes Jesus, who's been healing and saving people all day without anything to eat, and he comes stumbling in and silences all of them. And one of the things I noticed when I watched that end scene, who was the most angry during that whole thing?
Simon.
Simon can't even look at Jesus.
He can't look at him. He has to
can't
look away.
look at Jesus.
He
He just
looks away and
stares
looks
at the
down.
fire.
Yep.
He can't even look at Jesus. And there's got to be those moments where Simon they all have this, where Jesus called them. And he's like, okay, he called me, but why this Yahoo over here? But then he feels guilty. He's like, I've got to get that out of my head. Like, and it's just so powerful.
And that's just like a little sample of what's to come with Jesus going to the cross.
Yeah.
Like, he comes in and shows them, this is the suffering that I'm doing for you and the people.
It's weird, but who's looking at him? Who goes to help him?
His mother.
Yeah.
And Mary Magdalene is watching the whole thing, and they're
Yeah.
the two at the cross with
That's a
him.
good point.
Now, I got to go back and look to see if John's watching too. But the rest of them look at each other, look at the fire. They see him, but then they can't fixate on him.
Mm-hmm.
It's too painful.
Simon's was the one that just stood out so much. Like, I am not looking up. I am staring down. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah.
But they all felt guilt, naturally,
Yeah.
because they acted like children again, which I never do.
Never.
How easy is it
Just
to
kidding.
do that?
All the time.
Oh my gosh, we get stuck up in our little stresses and
Mhm.
stumbles and hiccups in life, and
But how important is it to you said this in one of the things last time we recorded. Abby said this, that you need an accountability partner of sorts. You've done that for me before, where I texted you and vented about something, and you're like, sounds like you've been on social media too much. It was exactly what the problem was. I was scrolling through, finding something to get mad about. It's
Yeah.
so easy. Yet I need social media to be able to, promote the podcast
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So, you got to you focus on the good, not the bad. Like, let the hate leave, because that's what the divider wants.
It's a reminder of how important Mass is for us every week.
Mm.
Like, we go through those stresses, we go through those arguments like they're doing at the fire, and then Jesus walks in. We go to Mass on Sunday, and nothing else matters.
And we receive his broken body.
Yeah.
Which is, he's broken here.
Mhm.
And his mother has to help him. That's what makes it amazing.
After
His mother comes to his rescue later when she says,
yes.
I don't remember the last time he's needed me.
it circles back.
But he needs her now.
hmm
She's the only one, I don't know if she's the only one that would have done it,
Right.
but she knew what to do
Yeah.
because she's his mother.
Mm-hmm. And the other cool thing, we talk about Jesus doing ordinary things. Like, a lot of us at the end of an exhausted day plop on our bed, go to sleep.
I was
Not
just gonna
Jesus.
say that. Yeah.
What does he do, Abby?
Praise.
Yeah, he still prays.
Mhm.
Yep.
He does not forget what his purpose is, ever.
Yep.
I
It's
love
also interesting. I mean, I don't know that I ever thought Jesus didn't get scratches or bumps growing up. I don't know if I ever went through my life thinking, oh, he was just God, so he didn't get any scratches, never had a dirty diaper. I don't think I had thought that. But to see him just weak and it's not like, I know I see him weak on the cross, and I can see that in my head. I can imagine him letting it happen to be fully human. But he is fully human in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he is like, I'm exhausted. I've done too much work. I could have used your help, guys. You're back here bickering, right?
They
But-
all slowly move away from him as the night goes on.
Right. So there's less and less people out front with him. So to see him fully human is reassured, just as Mary is talking. He was fully human when he was little, and he almost in her mind became fully divine. Didn't need her anymore, and now he's human again.
Mm-hmm.
Where
That's so cool.
it's so weird because it's always hard for people to imagine how can he be 100% human, 100% divine. But we're seeing him in this episode, both,
Yeah.
which is incredible.
Even more of a parallel that I just thought of to the crucifixion. He's covered in blood when he
He's
walks
blood
by.
on
It's
him, yeah.
blood, it's sweat, dirt.
Right.
Like, he was healing injured people.
Yeah.
It's their blood on him.
Mm-hmm.
It's really neat.
I think you mentioned something that made me remind me of this, but I thought at the beginning of the episode when Big James is talking about, I imagined us, fighting the Romans and doing all this stuff, not, out there healing people, and I thought, why aren't you guys all out there watching this?
Yeah.
watching these people get healed, like, where else on earth would you rather be than watching Jesus heal these lines of people? And I kind of thought about that in our lives now. Like, we went to Montreal last week, and we went to Mass, and they had adoration afterwards, and I was like, we could just, like, scoot out of here, go sightsee, whatever. But, like, no, like, we're going to stay here for adoration. Like, where else on earth would we rather be than sitting in Jesus' presence? Like, so that just, it reminded me, like, maybe Jesus said, like, I only need 2 of you to hang out, but, like, where are you guys? Like, you guys are back here arguing.
We get stuck in our routines, I think, which I am a routine-oriented person, but it's like you do the same thing where it's just you mindlessly go through your day. All right, I get up, I go to work, come home, watch some TV, get dinner, put the kids to bed, watch TV again. And we just do that every single day. And sometimes, that's fun and fine and interesting, but when we don't slow down to think about why am I doing any of this stuff and what the real purpose of everything is, which the apostles were struggling to figure out what that purpose was. Yeah. That's why they're arguing in the first place. Like, why is he even here? Instead of just focusing on what Jesus was doing. And I think that's something for me that I have to keep telling myself. Like, okay, I'm going to block out all the noise, what everybody says about everybody else. Let's just focus on what Jesus said to do. There's a moment in season 1 where I think we talked about that, where, or maybe I don't know, somewhere in this show, it's later. I'm just remembering where it is.
It's in season 8.
It's Matthew talking to Gaius down the road. It might have been season 4, 3,
Spoiler
2,
alert.
I don't know. Matthew says, when I focus on just what Jesus tells me to do, all the noise goes away.
Yeah.
It's cool. What time do you have to leave, Jake?
1:45.
Are you sick? You feeling all right?
I don't want to leave.
You don't look that good.
Isn't this awesome?
Yeah.
Even
You
if
don't
like
look
2
that good.
people listen to it, I'm having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And Jacob listens to about 3 podcasts a day, so
I was
Which
so
ones do you
jealous.
listen
3
to?
hours of podcasts.
So jealous Abby was on a podcast before I was. When I'm the
dude.
podcast guy.
I love
in our family.
podcasts too. I listen to them all the time. Like, I've started doing that. Just, it's helped me turn off the TV. Who cares about like this game that doesn't mean anything? I'm gonna put my headphones in and listen to a podcast.
Yeah, most of mine are like business related, but there's one that we found.
They sound intriguing.
Oh, yeah, I meant to send this one to you
Yeah,
guys.
it's really great. So it's actually kind of a cool story how we came across it too. So Abby and I were on a flight, and I was saying a rosary. I had my rosary out. Some guy walks by, taps me on the shoulder, and gives me a thumbs up, and then keeps walking. He waited at the end of the gate after the flight for Abby and I to come out so he could talk to us and just say, hey, I saw you praying your rosary, whatever. And I can't remember exactly what he was doing, like what he was promoting or whatever, but he gave us this card, and I looked it up, and it's dailyrosary.net. And it's a daily podcast of a rosary. It's 2 people. They say the rosary, and they have a daily meditation with it around saints, Catholic teachings. I've been listening to that every day since
awesome.
I came across that. It's like 20, 25 minutes. Take a walk, listen to it.
That's cool.
It's
It
great.
was actually wild because the dude said that he had come to Browser to like talk. Like, he's like friends with Miss Glabe.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That is wild. My problem is I have so many different podcasts. There's no way I can listen to them. Like, there's like 2 or 3 that are like an hour long, and they're every day. And it's like, I can't do all of these, but I try to just do what I can. And because I get a little scrupulous with it, and I'm like, I got to listen to all of them. There's no way.
I always feel the same way, and it really makes you step back because there's just endless, right? Like, it's infinite, all the information out there. So we really have to be.
Like, here's just an example of all the ones I've subscribed to. Like, there's a couple of them that aren't Catholic based, but like that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Oh, it's
9.
impossible.
Like, I can't do. And then there's some like KSR that I'll start listening to some sports stuff, and then I'll be like, I just spent 2 hours listening to that when I could have got closer to Jesus. Not that it's not good to enjoy some laughter and cool camaraderie with people in today's world, but
Don, do you like podcasts?
I listen to podcasts only And every time I mow, they have to be religious based. I made this rule like 2 years ago. No, during COVID.
Because it takes a while for you to mow
It
your
takes
yard.
like 2.5 hours to mow.
Do you have to wear like sound like headphones
Nah,
like
I
that?
usually wear a little.
Oh my
plug-in
gosh,
ones.
that's got to be on like full blast in
It
there with the
probably is on
mower
full blast.
going.
But it's great.
It's okay.
It's
Nope.
good stuff.
He doesn't need to hear people.
I don't need to hear. What?
The saying, just real quick, and we can get back to it.
You're
The
fine.
saying that they have at the end of this daily rosary meditation is, "Let's be apostles of good friendship, conversation, and the rosary." I just think that's great. Like, especially as we're talking about like how friendship, relationships are important in our faith here. They're all about just find the relationships, invest into
Yeah.
people, and that's how we spread the faith.
That's awesome.
We
Cool.
didn't get the button this time at all.
Oh,
You don't
I didn't
have
really
here.
mess with it at all. You want me to? That was a good joke, Abby. Oh, I should play with this thing a little
Poignant
more.
comment, Abby.
There you go. Good job, Don. All right, enough of that.
Now this
Yes.
episode.
Oh, it's my favorite episode. All right, so let's move on to episode 4. Which Thank you for listening to this episode of the BBHS Seek and Find podcast. If you like what you heard, please like and share with a friend. Be sure to subscribe to all of our social media. You can follow us on Instagram and YouTube at BBHS.SeekandFind. You can also follow us on Facebook at Bishop Russer High School Seek and Find Ministry. Once again, thanks for listening, and may God bless you today.